It's my honor and pleasure to welcome our keynote speaker up onto the stage, Rami Nassar. Rami is the founder of 1,000 Days Out, the author of the upcoming AI Product Design Handbook. With nearly 25 years of experience in technology as the former head of innovation at Mattel, he leads presentations and workshops focused on disruption and strategic foresight with organizations around the world.
I'm actually not a big slide person, but this first one is important, so I'm going to put up a cute picture here for you. What are we looking at in this picture? An MRI, thank you. This is an MRI, it's a GE model, I don't know, 75. I'm not sure what the model number is, but the MRI is arguably one of the biggest technology advances in imaging, in medical care, in clinical science in many, many decades. And yet not that long ago, a group of people working at GE discovered a little bit of a flaw. If anyone's ever been in an MRI, you know that it is an uncomfortable procedure. It lasts 15 to 90 minutes, you have to lay very still, it's claustrophobic, it's dark, it's loud. Being told that that noise is a superconducting electromagnet spinning around your brain doesn't make you feel better. How do you think it makes kids feel? They discovered that the majority of pediatric patients required some kind of sedative or anesthetic just to go through the procedure. So the same group decided to take a new approach to the MRI. They decided to use human-centered design. For today, we'll call it patient-centric design. And they took something out of the human-centered design or design thinking toolkit called reframing. They looked at the same problem through a new lens, in this case, the lens of the patient. Rather than the hospital administrator who's got the budget to approve the purchase, what about the child who is trapped inside this terrifying machine for 25 minutes? So they asked a problem statement and they reframed it. The problem statement was quite simply, how might we redesign the MRI for improved pediatric patient outcomes? They reframed it. They added one word, experience. How might we improve the MRI experience for pediatric patient populations? And all of a sudden, they unlocked innovation for this technology in one shot. They actually went and decided to empathize, try to get to better know their group. They went into kindergarten, grade 1 classrooms, sat around, and watched for entire days at a time. There was one common factor that they found. One time the kids stopped talking and yapping and running around. And it wasn't nap time. Story time. Immerse a kid in the narrative and they will be captivated. Which led to this. The Pirate Adventure. For $420 worth of paint, decals, stickers, and a storybook, they transformed a multi-million-dollar machine and reduced the need for anesthetic or sedatives by nearly 90% in their pilot. For $400. That's the power of patient centricity, patient-centric design. So I see a few familiar faces. I was at the Global Summit in October in Florida. It was a blast. And I had the pleasure of moderating a panel called Tech or Terror. We talked about the adoption of technology at research sites. And we talked about the technology of today. And we thought as a follow-up to it, the unofficial name being Tech or Terror Part 2, what about the technology of tomorrow? So I realize I've not really told you anything about myself for those I haven't met. I'm not going to read you all these bullet points. Jimmy said more than enough about me, but I will share that I'm really, really lucky. I get to spend most of my time thinking about technology and thinking about the future and reflecting on how those things intersect, particularly through the lens of clinical trials and research sites. And so I want to introduce you today 3 interrelated, amazing, cool aspects of the tech landscape that are going to transform each of our personal and professional lives and the work we do at research sites over the next 3, 5, 10 years, and maybe have a little fun with one terrible one as well. So the first one, I actually have to go back in time a little bit. 15 years ago, a Canadian sci-fi author named Robert Sawyer wrote a trilogy of books called the WWW Trilogy. Wake, Watch, Wonder. I won't give it all away, but there are going to be a couple spoilers here, so if you're planning to read it, cover your ears. But in this book, a young lady who is visually impaired and interacts with her computer through an accessibility device called JAWS, discovers an emerging intelligence in AI that has essentially woken up. Wake is the name of the first book on the internet. She basically becomes friends with this AI and they get to know each other. And the best part in the book series is that she convinces this AI that it has to tell the humanity it exists for good, it doesn't exist to harm people. So one night the AI does something kind of sneaky. It reads the research done on cancer. Not some of the research. It reads every research study, every academic paper, every trial ever done on cancer. Instantly. It's a computer, it reads it all instantly. Then hacks into the Toronto Star, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, every major newspaper on earth. And the next morning the world wakes up to one headline: a singular cure for cancer. The point the author's trying to make, or that I interpret the author trying to make, was, what if we actually already had it, and we just never had the capability, the collective brain power to look at all the work that was done? It is sci-fi. And if I told you that story 10 years ago, it would seem pretty out there. But now, all you need to do is spend 10 minutes with ChatGPT or a generative art tool and realize it might not be as far-fetched. AI will be our new normal. It's not going to be an optional tool in our toolkit. It will be how we all do a lot of the different things we do. We need to collectively realize it is part of our new normal. So, you may notice I walk around when I speak. I actually do when I'm on calls too. And yesterday, just literally yesterday, I was in my backyard on a conference call, and I was pacing. And about 5-6 minutes into the call, my Garmin running watch vibrated. I realized I'd been walking long enough for it to think I'm out for a walk, doing like some exercise. Happens pretty regularly, actually. But how cool is that? It is collecting data. Now, privacy stuff aside, let's park that for a second. We have the tools, the sensors, the wearables, the technologies to collect data almost all the time about sleep. We can get pulse oximeter data, glucose data, activity data, all kinds of different things. The impact research sites would be, or one of the potential impacts would be, some of the menial, time-consuming, sometimes redundant tasks that are done by humans. We can do those with passive data collection. In fact, we can go from doing a data collection that happens 2 to 3 times a week during a specific appointment to almost always continuous data collection. Again, you can't fight this. This is happening. It happens almost in the background of everything we do, and this sensor-connected world will continue to expand. Third one, 2012. Man walks into a Target store, and many of you have probably heard a version of what happened here. Quite mad. Now, the initial report that came out said he was abusive. He actually wasn't, but he was very mad. He was mad because his sub-18-year-old daughter was getting targeted advertisements and coupons from Target in the mail for prenatal vitamins. He was like, why are you targeting her like that? Well, unfortunately, he was asking the wrong question. The question should have been, how did you know she was pregnant before she did and before we did? That was 10 years ago that Target's advertising algorithms and campaigns could predict something like that. That outcome should never have happened, don't get me wrong. But this idea of being able to predict anything and everything is starting to come together. What does that mean for sites? Predicting divergence from protocols, predicting eligibility criteria, predicting screen fails, predicting so many things before they happen, reducing the time of studies, reducing the chance of losing participants, even optimizing participants where you know they might not end up going through the study. So these are 3 fun technologies. They're certainly interrelated. We're going to explore them a little more in a couple of minutes, but it wouldn't be tech or terror if we didn't talk about something terrible. 2 photos here. And we're going to start with the one on the right. Does anyone remember during COVID, for that brief period, you couldn't go anywhere without having an infrared thermometer pointed at your head, kind of like a gun, checking to see if you had a fever, essentially? Well, in this experiment, the group of researchers used Google's image recognition algorithm, and you could have used anyone's, but they used Google's, it's not a knock on Google, to detect what objects were present in the image. And so the image on the right, Google predicted there's a piece of technology, an electronic device, maybe a camera, photography device, something like that. Clearly the picture on the left, though, is a person with a hand holding a gun. Problematic to say the least. Now, some of you may be saying to yourselves, but Randy, look at the device itself. It's darker. Yes, there's a person with black or darker pigmented skin holding the gun or holding the device, but the device itself is a lot darker. So we have to ask ourselves about the context. And what happens if we change the context? So the same group of people decided to use what I can only assume is Microsoft Paint, because it's not even well done, to reshade the hand holding the thermometer into a white or Caucasian pigment. And all of a sudden, Google is no longer threatened by it. The device hasn't changed. The context changed. This should scare you a little bit. And there are many examples about this. The question we have to ask ourselves is bias in systems, systemic bias in the data we use to make predictions, to run our AIs, to build these algorithms. What are the risks associated that they bring into our studies? We can't just look at the cool tech side of things. We don't have to call it terror, but we have to look at the risks as well. And so coming back full circle, I think the real way that sites will uncover, and sponsors and tech vendors, the entire ecosystem, I should say, will uncover the dramatic, disruptive, transformational potential of technology is when we combine technology and understanding of the risk and patient centricity. Let's make those pirate adventure MRIs instead of devices that are clearly made to sell products. So with that, I'm super excited for the second half of the session to actually introduce Carrie Venn, who is the Chief Operating Officer. We're going to sit in a second here of Centricity Research. But I have to tell you about the picture you're looking at.